It was Adam Smith, way back in the 18th century, who first theorised about the gains of specialisation. He described how workers in a pin factory could increase their output by each focusing on a very specific part of the process. So instead of each person working on the entire production process of the pin from start to finish, we've got each person working on just one small part of it. And in fact, division of labour is almost everywhere you look. From splitting up the household chores like ironing and taking the bins out, right the way through to really specialised jobs that members of a Formula One team perform in the space of a few seconds in a pit stop. Division of labour is based on the principles of specialisation, which can refer to individuals, firms, or even whole economies, and the idea that narrowing the range of tasks performed or goods produced based on what each individual is most efficient at doing. So it doesn't have to start by breaking down a process. Specialisation can be based on skills. Imagine being stuck on a desert island and it's got a tree with coconuts, plenty of fish in the sea, and somehow loads of building supplies have washed up on the shore as well. And stranded on the island is you, me, and our friend Wan. Let's pretend I'm great at fishing, you're a good builder, and Wan's amazing at getting hold of the coconuts. It would be inefficient and not to mention exhausting if we each built our own shelter and we each went looking for our own fish and all attempted to climb for coconuts. So we'd all benefit getting the best shelter and the most food if we only did or specialised in what we do most efficiently. So it makes sense for you to build all the shelters, for me to catch all the fish, and for Wan to collect all the coconuts. And then at the end of the day, we'd trade or exchange with each other, so that everyone had decent shelter and enough food. This is the main reason for specialisation. It's to benefit from increased productivity and output. That's the key though. For specialisation to work, you need to also then be able to exchange any specialised output produced in order to keep access to the full diversity of goods and services. On the island, there's no point you specialising in building if you're not going to be able to exchange for some fish, or you'll go hungry. In economics, we talk about specialising where there's the lowest opportunity cost. Here's my island PPF. If I spent all day catching fish, I'd have no coconuts and 20 fish. If I divert half my time to finding coconuts, I'd have 10 fish and only 2 extra coconuts. The opportunity cost for me of getting each of those extra coconuts is 5 fish. Here's Wan's island PPF. You see how it's a different shape? If he spent all his time fishing, he'd only get 10 fish. If he spends half his time getting coconuts, he'll only lose out on 5 fish, but gain 10 coconuts. The opportunity cost for Wan of getting each of those extra coconuts is just half a fish. So the opportunity cost of finding coconuts is lower for Wan than me, in that he loses less fish than me for the amount of coconuts gained. This shows that we should specialise in where we have the lowest opportunity cost to increase overall output. Moving away from my fictional island and back to the real world, why do you think in the UK we export mostly pharmaceuticals and financial services? It's because that's what we're good at. Or to use the terminology, that's where we have the lower opportunity cost relative to other countries. The downside to all this is that if you over-specialise in too narrow a range of goods, it can leave you a bit vulnerable. That's the reason we keep producing a lot of our own food. If there was a conflict or some political reason why we couldn't trade as much, financial services wouldn't be great at keeping millions of people alive. This could also be a problem if an individual worker over-specialises and then new technology comes along and takes over the specialised part of their job. Like we wouldn't need Wan if a ladder washed up on shore and we could get to the coconuts just as easily. So it's important to keep hold of a range of skills. And there's also the danger of workers just getting a bit bored and demotivated with doing the same job over and over again. It's a fine line between increasing productivity by focusing on what you're good at and reducing how much you produce just because it becomes so monotonous. In summary for this video, we've covered the ideas of specialisation and the division of labour. How productivity and overall output can be increased by each individual, firm or country focusing their energies on producing a more narrow range of goods and services and exchanging them with each other, but also highlighted the dangers of over-specialisation.